ambazo ndio tutakuwa tunazitumia kwenye kuseti mitihani, kujua kwamba hizi ni level gani na nini na hizi ni level gani. Sasa tunaenda kwenye mchanganuo wa TOS yenyewe, table of specifications, how to construct a table of specifications. Sasa katika preparation ya TOS kuna number of factors ambazo tunaziangalia. Kuna number of factors ambazo tunaziangalia kwa intro tu, kabla sijaanza kwenda kwenye procedure zenyewe. When preparing a table of specifications, you should look on the following. When preparing the TOS or table of specifications, you should look on the following factors or points. Firstly, you have to check on the subject objective or competencies. Subject objective or competencies. The subjective objective are learning objective. At the end of the competence, what do you expect to get to your learners? Number two, you have to look on the topics covered in the class. And number three, you have to look also the amount of time spent on those topics or competencies. Amount of time spent on those topics, the topics you mentioned. So when observing this point, the amount of time spent on on those topics involves the number of periods. It involves the number of periods. Secondly, it involves the number of weeks at which a given topic or competence taught. How long the topics covered, how long the competence covered. So you check on the number of weeks. Also, you have to observe the number of months. It may be months, might be number of periods, as I said, number of weeks, and number of months. And lastly, the number of subtopics covered. This is some of the few points to note before we start our target. So in constructing the TOS or the table of specifications, there are some factors to consider, or ways to consider, or procedures to consider. Firstly, when preparing the TOS, you should have to outline the topics to be covered and the instruction time or instructional time for each topics or competencies. Outline the topics. That's number one. Procedure number one. Outline the topics or competencies to be covered. Outline the topics or competencies to be covered and the respective instructional time for each topic. The topics to be covered are those which it is shown to the syllabus, lesson plan or scheme of work. The topics, the competence, you can find the competence within the syllabus. You can find the competence within the scheme of work, within the lesson plan. But when we say the instructional time, what do we mean by this terminology? Instructional time. The instructional time, it is the time taken by a teacher to cover a specific competencies. That is called instructional time. The time taken for a teacher to cover a given competencies. To cover a topic, meaning the whole many competence, or a specific competencies, or some activities originating from the many activities. So the time taken to cover those concepts, it is called an instructional time. So this is the first procedure, to outline the topics or competencies to be covered and the instructional time for each topic. So when you look on those papers, you can see a table being written to your left, to the left hand side. It is written topics, if I'm not mistaken, topics or competencies, specific competencies. And to the left, to the right hand side, there are instructional what? Time for the competence to be covered. For instance, the specific competence number 1, which is investigating various things that are in the environment, this is from science and technology. So we assume that the instructional time taken for a teacher to cover this specific competence is one what?
1 minute.
Yes. It might be maybe a week, or 1 period, whatever, or 1 month. Huh? 1 month. Depending upon the toughness of the competence. So this is an example. The first specific competence used 1 maybe week, or 1 month, or 2 days, or a day. The same applied to the second specific competence, given 3 what? 3 weeks or 3 months, whatever. But these are what we term as what? Instructional time. Before I said it might be maybe the number of periods, or the number of weeks, or the number of months, or the number of subtopics. Kwamba inaweza ikawa katika hizi numbers zikawakilisha either topic imefundishwa kwa wiki nzima, au kwa kuangalia vipindi vingapi, ama mwezi, ama topics, subtopics. Sababu ili ukave main competence kunakuwa na zile nini? Specific competence. Au ndani ya specific competence kunakuwa pia na activities, the main activities. Kwa sasa zile main activities au zile topics au zile competencies zako umezifundisha kwa kutumia muda gani. Ndo hapa ndio inaitwa instructional time. Table ya kwanza kabisa si mnaiona? Lakini ukienda procedure number, tayari tumeshafanya procedure number 1. Tumesha outline the what? The specific competence with its respective instructional time for the competence to be covered. Tayari tumemaliza procedure number 1. Procedure number 2. Procedure number 2. Calculate the percentage weight of the topic. Calculate the percentage weight of the topics. Hiyo ni procedure number 2. Kwa hiyo note kama utakuwa unaandika sehemu. Maana yake tutafanya kwa vitendo. Kuna magepu hapo, maana yake tutafanya sisi. Haya magepu yote tunajaza sisi wenyewe.
Percentage weight of a topic.
Calculate the percentage weight of the topics or competencies. So when we say the percentage weight of the competence, what do we mean? The percentage weight of the competence, it is, or it looks on heaviness of a competence or lightness of the competence in teaching and learning processes. How the competence is heavy to your learners or it is light to your learners. Hardiness. So this involves the content of the given competence. How weight the content is. How weight the content is. There are some of the competencies with a few concepts, and there are some of the competencies having many what? Specific competencies or activities or many activities. So basically we say the one with many specific competence, or as the specific competencies increases, also the instructional time increases. As the specific competence increases, also it affects the number of what? Instructional time also increases. So in this procedure we use the following formula to calculate the weight, the percentage weight, how heavy the competence is. We use the following formula. Weight of the competence or topic is equal to weight of the topic or a competence is equal to time spent in the topic or competence. Let us use the word competence. Time spent in the competence. Time spent in the competence. So over total instructional time. Over total instructional time times 100. Times 100. So when we say time spent in the topic or in the competence, we mean how long the competence was taught. The competence was taught for how long? The competence was taught for how long? This is time spent in the competence. For how long a given competence is taught. Over total instructional time, as I said, the total instructional time, it depends upon the number of time taken in each specific competence. That's the total. For example, the main competence X, having specific competence, maybe 5 specific competence.
Yes.
In each specific competence, there must be a given time for how a specific was taught. Yeah? So you take those number of maybe weeks or monthly or whatever, then you sum up to obtain the total number of instruction time. In each specific, maybe you used one day or 1 week. Then the second specific competence you use maybe 3 weeks up to the last. So you have to sum up. You have to sum up those time given in each specific competencies to obtain the total instructional time taken to cover the whole competencies, main competencies. That is the formula. We are going to use it. So,
I'm very sorry.
okay.
I want to know. In terms of calculating the weight of the topics or competence,
Yes.
are we going to use time in weeks, days, or in hours?
As I said, it depends with the test you are targeting for. If your target is to check on the maybe a single main competence, it means you are going to divide the main competence in 2 parts, which is specific competencies. So in each specific competence, you should have to look for how periods, number of periods you used to teach your learners. The number of days or the number of weeks. So you have to opt yourself. Are you going to use the number of periods or are you going to use the number of weeks? It have got no effect. Whatever you use the number of weeks or the number of periods. When you decide to use the number of weeks, it means to the whole specific competencies use the same unit.
Okay, so
You catch me?
It depends on the periods you have per week.
Yes. So, for the second table is when now we are going to practice what I said here. Are we together? The second table, it is the same as the first one. The same as the first one. The specific competence from table number 1 are the same with those found in table number 2. The instructional time for the competence number for the table number 1 are those found in the table number 2. So our task here is to calculate the percentage weight of the competence in each specific competence. The percentage weight, which we have to obtain the total of 100. Yeah? So in calculating or in filling these gaps, we are going to use the formula I stated here. So now, according to the table, if you check on the first specific competence, there is a unit 1. So when you want to obtain the weight, how heavy the specific competence is when now we are going to use the formula. Take the time spent in the topic number 1, specific competence, which is 1 over the total instructional time, which is 10 times 100, which is 10. So you have to write there 10.
Sorry.
There is no need of writing the sign of percentage. While there is the word percentage weight of the competence. You have to write only the number. Yes?
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Is it 100 as 100 or 100%?
100%.
100% is the same as the percentage weight of the table number 3. So you have to copy it. After copying, then you calculate by using the given formula in order to obtain in each specific competence how many number of items will be included in your test. Clear? Yes? You understood it?
Yes.
So proceed. Alafu tutakuja kucompare. Najaza wenyewe tutakuja kucompare.
Andika jina, andika jina.
Kweli sio kweli. Nitakayo kwanza kusahihisha. Nikoseshe huyo. Nitakayo kwanza kusahihisha. Ya kweli. Ya kweli kama
main topic. Lakini specific competence tunayozungumzia leo ndio ilikuwa inamaanisha sub topic. Umeona? Sasa ukiangalia pale zamani tulikuwa tukisema tu specific kwenye content based curriculum. Tulikuwa tukisema tu kwamba specific nini? Specific nini zile ndio ilikuwa covered within a period. Lakini ukiangalia tofauti wa sasa specific competence ukiipelekea kama ilivyokuwa ile specific nini ile kwamba utailazimisha hiyo ikabe kwa sababu umeona neno specific. Kumbe hii specific ndani yake there is many activities. Ndani ya many activities there is a specific activities. Kumbe specific activities ndio inaenda kufanana na hiyo nini ya kipindi hicho. Yes. Ndivyo inavyokuwa.